How do you keep your eye on the bigger picture when you're talking about these Scrum and Agile methodologies and delivering bits of functionality over time? How do you keep the team focused on the bigger picture of what you're trying to ultimately
Yeah, I
do?
mean, I still think even though you're Scrum and you're trying to go fast and, maybe you aren't documenting and things like you would in a waterfall, you still have to have that bigger picture, right? So if you've got an effort that you know is going to take you a year, you still should have a plan for that year. So in Q1, we expect to see this. Q2, Q3, Q4, we expect to see these deliverables hit. And you have to have conversations with the team as they're marching forward and get them, if you fall behind, take that step back with the group because it's the group's responsibility to make sure they deliver. But someone in the organization, and maybe that's someone within the team or it's someone outside of the team that has that bigger picture, but is working with them. I mean, again, it can't be a top-down thing, but you have to have someone that has an eye on that and forces the team. I mean, you have to have that conversation, and you have to kind of build that into your process to look if.
How do you get them to have their? I mean, I struggle with this at our current client. We have too many people red button blue. They're doing that because that was the task for this week to do that, but they don't understand what was the goal of the button. Why did I make it blue? Where are we going with that?
Right. So I mean, the product owner is going to own the vision for what they're building, and hopefully that vision aligns with the business's goals, right?
I guess I don't let the developers off the hook for not knowing that.
No, they shouldn't be off. They shouldn't be let off the hook. But product is responsible for setting what that is and sharing that with the team. I mean, everyone on the team should understand what it is we're trying to do. Just like everyone in the team is responsible for quality, right? You're going to have testers, and testers are going to be the primary folks that are validating things. But developers have a responsibility for making sure what they build meets the requirements. The product folks, and if you've got business analysts, or they need to be responsible for making sure that the quality of the requirements, that it's at the right level of detail and that they're right.
Do you think you need business analysts in your Scrum team?
It depends on what you're doing, right?
Based on the complexity, or?
Could be the complexity, could be the experience level of the folks in the team. I mean, if you have people that are, newer or out of college, you're probably going to have to divide that work up more and
the business analysts, because I always think of the business analysts almost as the champions of the waterfall, because they, focus so much on writing the big technical documentation, because that's what they've always done.
No, but you can take that big 300-page document, like I was saying,
But not skipping documentation.
No.
Because that's a fallacy we see a lot.
Right. All of that information needs to go to the project team. It's not going to be in one place. It may be scattered in whatever system you're using for work management across, like we're using Microsoft's tools, DevOps and TFS. You might scatter that information across 1,000 tickets, right? But you still have to write up, for this user story, there's the acceptance criteria, and here are the things that we need. That all still has to happen. It's just not going to be in one centralized document or a set of documents like it once was. And you're not going to create it up front before you actually start building. You're going to do it over time.
How do I get the book at the end?
Depends on the tool you're using. I mean, I would hope that most folks are using a tool, and that tool could spit out results. I mean, that's going to be a convention thing. I mean, some companies use spreadsheets and do that. I mean, it just kind of depends.
Ultimately, someone's going to watch all three of ours.
Right.
But as we're inching our way up to that bigger picture, keeping the worker bees all heads up and focused.
Is that an architecture problem?
No.
Product management?
This was all just back to the Scrum methodology. And
it's what does the PMO become, right? So PMO in the old world.
Well, I think it's part of the problem is I don't love PMOs.
I get that, but you have to have someone, if you're doing all of that work.
Infrastructure guys rarely love PMOs.
That's thinking about that stuff.
And do you think the PMO should be a project-based or kind of program? Like, how far down should they go?
Well, that's what the P is, right?
Well, but the problem is a lot of PMOs, I think, become filling out spreadsheets so they can report up to management rather than clearing more blockers, making sure everybody's executing on time.
Well, but to me, it's a love-hate relationship because.
Oh, it's 100%,
right?
yeah.
So we agree there, but project managers are the ones that are supposed to keep everybody on point and understand where the project is at any given point in the project timelines. Right, where are we today? What's the current status? Crack the whip. Make sure this is getting done. That's falling behind. Why is that falling behind? All the stuff that we're trying to find someone who's responsible for all of it, everyone doing that today. That's project management.
Right.
Whoever that might fall to in our world, product or somebody else, that's still
Or
a project
us.
management activity.
A lot of it does fall to us to get stuff.
I think the trainer that we used in our last Agile training, he had a phrase that he kept using: "We're all professionals, and we should act like it." And in my mind, the PMO, it's no different. You have enough to satisfy whatever the current challenge is. You don't have it just to have it. Look at what your group is, and when they start to struggle, you put a little bit on to help them, and it's always just enough so that whoever it is that needs the information is getting what they need.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's where my PMO problem always comes, is because when you've got a really good project manager and they're applying just that level of input to keep people moving along, that's great. But I think because they do know all the pieces, they get tasked with all the reporting stuff, and then the reporting stuff becomes more important than keeping the projects on. And I've had a lot of PMOs who are like, all right, we'll update the dates. I'm like, well, why are we slipping all these dates? So
Well, that goes hand in hand, though. I mean, they keep their eyes on it. They have to report on it.
Right.
That's part of it.
Well, but yes, reporting should be a byproduct of keeping the teams on
Yes.
point. So we've had the infrastructure conversation, and we were talking about it before, really how to get the teams on board with it. And they get a lot of fear because as we move towards the cloud, especially in the cloud migration, the infrastructure teams worry their jobs go away because we can't get our friends, the developer, to go write different code pieces for it, and they can do it without us, or the DevOps. But in reality, they need to recognize that their role is still, scale, security, uptime, response, and keeping the wheels on the bus. But you've got to get them to look at it from a business standpoint. To the application as a whole, the product as a whole, is continuing to add value to the business, not just server 27B is still online. And you really achieve a lot of that by showing them where their value is in that process and getting them on board with the DevOps people, not trying to do DevOps in a vacuum, but getting them along and trying to define who's doing what piece and how do we work together in the future, where there used to be a clean line between, this is my server and you put your code in my directory. Now we're working together to deliver a shared
But do you
outcome.
guys really think in those terms that you were kind of describing there? So like availability, what's the resiliency of the current state? Because those are the skills that need to go forward. But do
Well, and
they
that's the
think that
ones
way
you've
now?
that's the ones you've got to talk to them about. That maintaining uptime. I mean, a lot of the applications get measured on percentage of uptime. And okay, well, if we all got beat up last week because we had a 27-minute outage, what do we do to get more than it? And getting them into the architecture discussion about what can we do to reduce that? How can we add more monitoring to find those problems? The best infrastructure teams is they're already working on a problem before the business or the developer or the customers are calling to complain about it. That their monitoring is tuned in a way that they're looking at what's important. Because a lot of monitoring they throw out is just noise. That's great that server is at 92% CPU, but who cares? Do the customers notice? Okay, well now we got to do something. And they do think about it because we don't like to be the ones that get yelled at. We'd much rather go yell at our developer friends. Your code broke my stuff. So you do have to do that, but then also show them where their place is going forward.
What does an ideal world look like for you and your teams?
As we make the cloud migration, or as we're
Just either current state or future state, either one. When you get there, what is? Because eventually you're not going to be migrating, right? You're going to be just operating normally.
The future state of IT, I think, is of ops is a much bigger security focus than I think they have now. You've got dedicated people in the world we live in with, the crypto locking and all that kind of stuff. You've got to have such a huge security footprint and be able to give, the CISO, the C-suite level of people, that level of confidence that whatever our application is, it's secure. But then you've also got to get close to the business. Cloud cost, when we buy hardware now, CFO writes a check, we own the hardware, we can do whatever we want with it. As we make the cloud migration, when we finish the cloud migration, you really have to understand day to day all the costs that are going into it. And they need to be part of that accountant to do that. To be able to do good estimating, to be able to look at reports and statistics that under this much, user load, I'm spending this much money and how can I improve that? And really looking at it less from the server's running or that server's moving, but more about it cost me $18 for a client to come and buy something for me, or it cost me, 37 cents to run this video, to really think about things like that and look at the picture rather than, can I make this faster? Can I save money doing it? Can I look at my application that I have out there and reduce my cost to run it? Or make it faster. You can't decrease performance when you do it. Staying on the resiliency thing. If, Netflix is a great example. They do chaos monkey drills. They intentionally break parts of the application in the cloud. Did it get designed when our friends, the architect, dreamed stuff up? Did they do it multi-region? Did they do it so that we're up when there's a major outage?